Hello, welcome to Algebra 1 with Mrs. Bennett. Last week we reviewed the properties for real numbers, as you can see here in this graphic organizer. If you do not have one of these graphic organizers, you can see me, and you can also get a copy from our It's Learning page. Today we're specifically going to talk about how we use these properties while we're simplifying algebraic expressions and simplifying with real numbers. So I have an example here that we're going to work out together. So keep your graphic organizer out with you. And here we have a word problem. I'll read it out loud. Sarah is making 2 types of cookies. The first recipe calls for 2 1/4 cups of flour, and the second recipe calls for 1 1/8 cups of flour. If Sarah wants to make 3 batches of the first recipe and 2 batches of the second recipe, how many cups of flour will she need? Okay, the goal here is to see how Sarah could do this using mental math. And we're going to use the properties to justify each step that we do. Okay, so first we need to write our expression. Okay. If Sarah wants to do 3 batches of the first recipe, then we need to take 3 times 2 1/4. And then she wants 2 batches of the second recipe, so that's 2 times 1 1/8, and we want how many cups of flour total is what the question is asking, so we're going to add the first batch and the second batch together. Okay, so there's our expression. Now we're going to rewrite this so that it's easier for mental math, because multiplying with mixed numbers is not that easy to do with mental math. And even with a calculator, if you have fractions, the calculator will give you the decimal form, which doesn't necessarily compare to measuring cups, because measuring cups are strictly in fraction form. So we're going to spread this out using the definition of a mixed number. Now a mixed number right here, when we read this, it says 2 1/4. 2 1/4 really means 2 plus an extra quarter of flour. And we're going to multiply that by 3 because we have 3 batches. Same thing over here. We have 1 1/8. That's the same as 1 full cup plus 1/8 of a cup. And we have 2 batches of that. So we're multiplying that expression by 2. Okay, for our justification, this is a definition of a mixed number. It just means you have whole parts and partials. Okay, now what we can do is use one of our properties of real numbers called the distributive property. So we have 3 times 2 and 3 times a fourth. Some people like to draw the little arrows to say that it's being distributed. You don't have to, that's not necessary. We're going to write it like this. We have 3 times the 2 wholes and 3 times the 1/4 cups. It's supposed to be a 3. And then over here we have 2 batches of the 1 1/8, which means we have 2 of the whole cups and then 2 of the 1/8 cups. Okay, and for our justification, we used distributive property. Next, we're actually going to simplify. We're just going to do the multiplication, because this we can do with mental math. Okay, so 3 times 2 is 6, so we substituted here. 3 times 1/4 is 3/4. again, we substituted. 2 times 1 is 2. We substituted. And here, since we multiplied by 1, we use the multiplication identity property. So I'm going to put that over here. Multiplication identity. Because multiplying by 1 keeps the identity of the original number. And then 2 times 1/8 is 2/8. So really, each time we multiplied, we use substitution as well. And that's one of our properties. Okay, now I'm going to actually put my like terms together because the whole numbers can be put together, but really they have to be next to each other in order to do that. So I'm going to switch these two. So it says 6 plus 2 plus 3/4, and that used the commutative property of addition. I'm also going to use substitution because 2/8 is the same as 1/4. So you can simplify 2/8 into 1/4 cup. Instead of measuring out 2/8 cups, you can measure out 1/4 cup. So I also use substitution here in this step. And this should be an and. Okay, so now I have some like terms here. 6 and 2 are both whole numbers, so they can be combined easily. And 3/4 and 1/4 are like fractions with common denominator, so those can be added together. So since this is all addition, I can associate who I want to go together by adding in parentheses. So I'm going to add parentheses here and here. So that's the associative property of addition. So that gives me 8. This 3/4 and 1/4 will give me 4/4, which simplifies to be 1 whole. So I also used, not only did I use associative property, I also used substitution again. And then I can add 8 plus 1 is 9. So final property would be substitution. So Sarah really needs 9 cups of flour total. So she's got to make sure she has 9 cups of flour in her pantry in order to make all these cookies. Okay, that's it.